Hello and welcome to Keep Right On, a Birmingham City podcast brought to you from us here at Birmingham Live. I'm Brian Dick and I'm joined as ever by bushy-tailed and bright-eyed Blues correspondent Alex Dicken, fresh from two 4-0 wins. Well, I'm going to claim one of those 4-0 wins because I covered it, but Alex Dicken is no longer the Lost Master General. He is now the Dubmaster General. So, Alex, how are you? Buoyed by Tuesday night, no doubt.
Yeah, definitely buoyed by another 4-0 victory for Awesome Blues. Yeah, genuinely, I was surprised. It was so convincing, but I mean, they probably could have had more, and we'll come on to later whether it was actually a better performance I witnessed against Millwall than the one you witnessed against Portsmouth.
Yeah, indeed. Just give us your main takeaway from that game, Alex. I wasn't at it. Instead, I was sent on a scouting mission to Leicester to watch Blues' next opponent, Middlesbrough. They drew 1-1 at the King Power Stadium, and we'll talk about that more. Should have laid the table at the top of the episode, really, shouldn't I? So we are going to dig deep into Blues' 4-0 win over Millwall, talk about some of the players that stood out. I think we both agree that some of the combinations are starting to crystallise now, and then we will turn our attention to Middlesbrough. So, yeah, sorry, Alex. Let's wind the clock back and pretend I did that at the start. Big takeaway from Tuesday night.
Yeah, so I mean, to be fair, if you look at the game as a whole, first 25 minutes before Peck scored the opener, I thought was pretty even. Millwall, I mean, looking at their 11, it was quite depleted. The bench was non-existent. So I always thought if Blues could get ahead, they were going to win the game because I didn't think Alex Neil would be able to change too much, and so it proved. The thing that really impressed me coming at it, having not watched the full Portsmouth game, and, my last sample of Blues being Bristol City away, 10 days before, was just the sheer will to get the ball forward, the urgency to get the ball forward. Every pass, when it came into the midfielders, seemed to be going forward, whether it be Tommy Doyle on the right side of it or Peck on the left side of it. And that was the big thing, the urgency to move forward and the speed they did it. And I think that really hurt Millwall, particularly down that right side, where the combination of Doyle playing it to Roberts and Iata bombing on the overlap or even on the underlap was just breathtaking and too much for Millwall to live with at times in that game. And, it's no surprise. I think that was three of the, or maybe even 4 of the goals came down the left side, or the right side. At least 3 of them did. So that is a really, really exciting combination.
Yeah, I think what stood out for me from the Portsmouth game, particularly, when you contrast it to Ashton Gate, was the tempo. Blues absolutely tore into Portsmouth. And we had a debate at the start of the week, didn't we? Was that good Blues or bad Portsmouth? But it sounds as though from what you're saying there is that tempo was right up again, and the intent to play. And just having seen the extended highlights, what struck me was the movement off the ball. There seemed to be, Blues players just seemed to be darting around everywhere, particularly in obviously in the attacking third. And whilst the Portsmouth game was largely about, brilliant set pieces and great tempo, this one, it felt like maybe the attacking patterns and the attacking combinations are starting to sort of form a bit more.
Yeah, I think particularly if you look at the first goal, Patrick Roberts is playing, the right wing position at Blues we made a lot about, didn't we, when Patrick Roberts signed, because he fitted the mould of last season, a left-footed player who would come inside off the right. But Patrick Roberts is actually staying very wide now and causing problems that way. And it suits Iata on the underlap. And the pattern or the play of getting Roberts down that right-hand side and putting a cross in, yes, that's great. But we've seen that multiple times this season, and we've seen only one person in the box. There were at least 3 or 4 players in that box when that ball came in. And it wasn't a brilliant ball. It wasn't the best cross Patrick Roberts will hit in his life, but it found Peck and marked to the back post, and the finish was absolutely outstanding. And that's a clear route to goal that Blues do have. The second goal was a mistake by Wes Harding, but it was then the quick play from Demarai Gray, Jay Stansfield and Marvin Dux to work the ball into the box, and they were pretty devastating. And I think Chris Davies pointed out in his post match that Jay Stansfield quite easily have shot from that position, a couple of minutes before half time, but he had the presence of mind and intelligence to cut the ball back for Gray. And to be fair to Gray, it was a better finish than we probably would have given him credit for when we first looked at it, because it was slightly behind him, I think. So that's then probably game over at 2-0. Alex Cochran's absolutely blasted one and scored the best goal of his life. And then, top it all off, nice bit of play, and Jay Stansfield has added his name to the score sheet. After a nice little bit of intricate play on the edge of the box. So it was just the perfect game, and a sign that hopefully Blues have settled in Championship life now, and that some of those players who were struggling early doors, you look at someone like Alex Cochran, who had some really difficult afternoons in the opening weeks of the season, and all of a sudden he's got 3 assists in his last 4 games and a goal to boot as well, plus 3 clean sheets. So things seem to be settling down nicely, and players seem to be adapting to the level. Chris Davies is learning combinations and working out what his best 11 is now. And going into the third of 4 international breaks this season, it looks like Blues have some of the answers. But, I say that knowing we're going to Middlesbrough on Saturday, and it could all change very quickly again.
2 things from what you said there. You mentioned Cochran's difficulties at the start of the season. Now, those difficulties are different to what we've seen in the last 3 or 4 games. He wasn't struggling with set piece delivery and 25-yard volleys at the start of the season. They were defensive difficulties, weren't they?
Yeah.
I mean, Blues have barely defended, have they, in the last 2 matches? So he hasn't been tested in that. But I suppose what we can say is we hope that the success in the attacking third is going to give him real confidence. And I think, is it fair to say you have seen a development in his game since those maybe probably only 2 or 3 matches where his winger sort of got the better of him?
I think so, because Cochran's game is never going to be about blistering speed. He's not going to be like an Ethan Laird who's going to match his winger physically and not get beaten by the odd fast player. It's all about positioning, and his positioning has been really on point recently, I think. Yeah. He's settled into that role. It probably has helped having Christoph Klara next to him, because he is the safest of the 4 Blues centre-backs that you could be put next to. And I think he's inverted into midfield at times really well. He's knowing when to go forward and finding himself in good crossing positions. Seems to be a little bit of a better understanding with Demarai Gray now, because I don't think that helped at the start of the season that he was playing with Gray for the first time, whereas last season he was always behind Keshi Anderson, and that partnership worked really well, and both seem to understand each other's game. The test will come inevitably again for Cochran when he plays a winger who wants to just constantly go at him. He's going to probably come up against Morgan Whittaker, isn't he, at Middlesbrough, who is a player with physical qualities that on the face of it could cause Cochran issues. So then I suppose it's how Cochran positions himself against Manhoff and against Sakamoto. I felt he dived in a little bit. He was quite quick to jump in. Will he have learned from that when he comes up against similar profile winger and stand back a little bit and wait, like he was, when Blues played against Swansea? I thought he was quite a good sandwich in between those games when he played against Ronaldo, who, again, live well winger, but didn't get the better of Cochran. Yeah,
the Whittaker is a very different type of player. He is more of a forward that comes inside. He's not a Sakamoto or a Manhoff that's going to take him on outside. So, I wouldn't be terrified without stealing my own thunder from what I saw from Morgan Whittaker on Tuesday night, albeit he has scored some really good goals at Championship level. The other point I wanted to come on to was, of the 4 goals, it was the second goal. The way they picked their passes and showed some real incisions, some quality passing and some good movement, and had numbers in people in the box having escaped defenders. I just felt that was really promising or an indicative that maybe the patterns are starting to come and that players are making better decisions and there are more options for players in the penalty area. So obviously Alex Cochran's volley was the one that stole the headlines or stood out that night. But in terms of open play, I thought the second one was really, really promising, because Dimmy was in a good position. Jay picked the right option, and there was a nice ball through to release Jay as well. So yeah, that was the one that I liked most.
It was ruthless in taking advantage of a mistake, wasn't it? Because it wasn't exactly a big mistake that Wes Harding made. Millwall was still in quite a strong position from that point. But the speed at which Blues moved forward, in about 3 passes, they had the ball in the net. So, yeah, that was an excellent goal.
We're going to come on to combinations now. Obviously, Peck and Doyle in the middle of the park and Jay and Dutch at the top. But the one you've put down on the running order is that Iata and Roberts partnership. I'm going to have to take a massive L on playing a central midfielder as a right back. We hinted about it on Monday. but Iwata's energy and the ability to get up and down and go inside and, you know, make himself a real problem for the opposition going forward. It's really, really impressive, and it's all based on energy. And we'll come on to, you know, is there enough in that particular tank to go again on Saturday? But yeah, what are your thoughts about that growing partnership between Roberts and Iata?
Yeah, if you watch that fourth goal, where Roberts, who had primarily stayed wide, came inside, and Iata from absolutely nowhere was just busting a gut to get on the outside and to create a little bit of extra space and take a man away from Roberts to allow him to move in field, and it led to a goal. You know, it's those kind of runs that you don't see that lead to goals that are probably, you know, most valuable, really. And I thought Iata was just outstanding again. I thought Roberts is probably better. The type of winger that Blues really needed to sign, and thank God they signed him right at the end of the transfer window, because he's a proper difference maker in this league. You know, I think he's already got two assists, 1 goal already. Could have had more assists as well. And you think of the quality that his assists have come from. The Dykes one against Swansea, and obviously the Peck one. He just looks like a really, really good player. And that partnership works so well because I think Roberts is better when he stays wide. I remember watching him for Sunderland a couple of years ago when Tony Mowbray was in charge there. And I made a big thing probably on this podcast afterwards about the way they set it up. And Roberts stayed wide, and Noel Huggins was the right back that day, and he was playing as a number 10 and he could have had a hat-trick first half for the positions he was taking up and the chances that he was getting. And that was largely because of how Roberts was holding his width and, you know, feeding balls through. So it clearly suits him being in that position. Yes, he can come inside sometimes, we saw for that fourth goal, but he's a natural right winger. And it's credit to Chris Davies, I suppose, for changing the system, because, you know, it was very set in stone last season, was that the right winger would come inside from the right and become a number 10 in possession, and the right back would create the width. Whereas now it's almost roles reversed, really. And Iata, it massively suits his game, because not only can he go on the outside, but he is obviously a central midfield player who thrives in the middle of the pitch. And his running power is something new to me, because I didn't see that, you know, when he was in midfield. I saw him, you know, make the odd sprint forward, but I didn't quite think he had that kind of speed. I'm not saying he's an Ethan Laird level of athlete going forward, but the sheer number of sprints he's getting through is remarkable. And yes, I do think he'll go again Saturday.
Yeah, he's relentless though, isn't he, Iata? You know, they're long runs from deep positions, and he's absolutely relentless, and he just keeps going and going and going. And it is almost like pounding a rock and running the legs off the opposition, isn't it? And eventually he's too energetic to track. So, presumably Mowbray would refer to Patrick Roberts as having lovely soft feet.
Probably, yeah.
He has though, hasn't he? You kind of get that.
100%. And, you know, another thing I would add on Iata is, you know, and we talk about can he go again? I remember the Christmas period last year when Chris Davies, to be fair, did rotate a number of players over Christmas, but Iata ended up, I think, starting 5 games in 13 days or something stupid. And, you know, speaking to Chris Davies after the Wigan game, I think, and basically asking how's Iata doing this, how's he getting through all these minutes at this time? And he said, like, the stuff he does, you know, away from the recovery side of things that Blues put on themselves, you know, he's constantly stretching. He's on the coach doing stretches. You know, plenty of times last season I was doing a post-match interview on the side of the pitch, and Tomoki Iwata would be sat about 5 yards away stretching, doing his own thing. So clearly looks after himself, and clearly is maybe just a little bit of a freak of an athlete in that he can go harder and faster than everyone else can, and for longer. So he's a unique player, and I'm probably appreciating him a little bit more now he's at right back than when he was in midfield at the start of this season, I think.
Yeah, I know what you mean. We'll have a conversation about Team Peck or Team Iwata in a minute. Excuse me. Of the combinations, any of the particular combinations that you want to alight on? Otherwise, obviously there's Peck Doyle, there's Clara and Neumann seem to be hitting something of a groove now, and Dutch and Stansfield, you know, seem to complement each other and dovetail beautifully. Pick one of those balls up or another one and run with it.
Yeah, Dutch and Stansfield look tailor-made for each other, don't they?
I'm glad. Is that the way you're going with that one? Because
I think so, yeah.
That's the one that feels like it's made a real difference to me.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, they're just both massively different players, both very clever players, but Duck's the brain on that man. You look at the things he does on a pitch and it's Premier League level IQ. And I actually do watch him. And I mean, I know he hasn't, I'm saying this and the man hasn't even scored a championship goal yet, but, I'm watching
the positions he's in, unbelievable, aren't they?
Yeah, I'm thinking, how have you never made it into the Premier League? Why are you 31 and playing in the Championship, especially given what he's done over the last 4 years at Werder Bremen? Just every single time he gets the ball or the ball comes to him, no matter where he is on the pitch, his first thought is forward. His first thought is to try and get a teammate into a good position or do something out of the ordinary. He's a really exciting player. He's not massively dynamic. He's probably a little bit more dynamic than I thought he was going to be. He's not as bad on the press as I thought he was going to be. I was listening to your interview, getting the lowdown over the summer, and one thing that was said was that, he's not unbelievable on the press. I think he's okay. He's not Stansfield level, but he's okay. And he's, in his first 3 starts, I think we've seen enough from him to say he can be an effective presser.
Yeah. But bearing in mind, he's only just coming into fitness, isn't he? He's only played an hour so far.
Yeah, and it's what he does with the ball, and it's always going to be what he does with the ball, which is why he's in the team. And some of the touches and the technique that he shows is absolutely outstanding. I was really actually quite annoyed with him against Millwall, because there was a really simple ball through to Iata right at the start of the game that he missed, and I have no idea how he missed it. A player of his quality should never be missing it. But after that, I mean, he was, again, for 58 minutes or 59 minutes, whatever he was on the field for, he was outstanding.
He played right up against the central defenders against Portsmouth, and had quite a few aerials to go for. Was that the case against Millwall as well?
He did. He tried to battle Jake Coop, but not many championship strikers going to win that battle, are they, in the air? So he did a little bit, but again, intelligence, knows that he's not going to win all the duels aerially. He dropped off quite a lot as well, and picked up the ball in some really, really good spaces, was always willing to drop and provide an option when, Iata was taking a throw in on the right side or whatever, and help Blues build out through Tommy Doyle. I think the first goal came from him collecting a pass from Tommy Doyle in midfield, turning and playing it out to Roberts, didn't it? So he was involved in everything while he was on the pitch. Yeah.
Let's move on to Peck and Doyle part combination, shall we, or just Peck? He's again scored a goal again, second game running. Had a really good game, didn't he? And answered his critics.
Yeah, if he has any, it's quite.
If they're allowed, I don't think they're allowed, are they?
No, it was quite interesting afterwards, because Peck's form. I mean, it was questioned, wasn't it, before the Portsmouth game? And I think it was fairly questioned, to be honest, because we all know how good a player Sung-Ho Peck is. He's a South Korean international. He was absolutely outstanding last season. I thought he was really good in the half season he played on Blues, got relegated. He, for me, has for a long time been the most talented player Blues have got, technically and tactically. And he has had few critics. But, I think most of us would have watched his games leading up to Bristol City, and obviously Bristol City, because he made quite a significant error in that game that led to a goal, and thought that he should probably be doing better in this league, because, I look at Peck and think there's Premier League potential there. And Chris Davies said that himself before as well. And I was a little bit underwhelmed by start to the season. So I don't think there was anything wrong with pointing that out. And I think a lot of us did. I'm not surprised that Chris Davies kept him in the team, because he clearly always feels that Blues are a better team with Peck in it, and I would agree, but maybe not on the form that he was showing 2-3 weeks ago. And Chris Davies did point out after the game against Millwall that I think the word he used was ludicrous. It's ludicrous that Peck would have any critics, and I'm not sure that's quite fair. I think every player is entitled to be, or it can be subjected to criticism from time to time if they're not performing to that level. I think that was just what it was with Peck. Yeah,
I mean, listen, you and I probably irritate a number of listeners for very many reasons on this podcast, but I suspect that our cheerleading of Team Peck might have grated on some. You and I have been unashamedly, fully signed up members of Team Peck, haven't we, in the Peck Iata debate last season.
I'm turning though now, Brian. I'm turning to right back.
and that's not a criticism of Peck, is it? No, absolutely not. You wrote after the Bristol City game, your headline was questioning, Peck's right to start every game. I followed that up on Thursday with last Thursday it was with Peck made a mistake. Is he playing his best? And there was a staunch defence from Chris Davies that day. Then again post match on Tuesday, he spoke to WM and as you said, absolutely came out to bat for his man and said that he found it laughable that anyone would question Peck. Again, I'm like you. I don't think anyone's immune to questions. So I think it was a relevant debate. And to be fair to Peck, and let's say Davies as well, Peck has responded. I'm not just saying he's scored 2 goals in 2 games, therefore he's now playing well. He's just playing well, isn't he? The last 2 games have been better.
Yeah, he's just playing to his level, what we all know he's capable of. And I think that debate was strengthened by the form of Mark Leonard, who I thought had played quite well in the 3 or 4 games leading up to that Bristol City game. And also the emergence of Tommy Doyle as well, who was kind of settling in alongside.
The lack of emergence of Tommy Doyle to an extent, because he was knocking on the door, wasn't he?
Well, yeah. And I suppose if you when Blues weren't winning games and fans are looking at the team and thinking, what can we change? Tommy Doyle was the obvious answer while he was sitting on the bench, wasn't it? So, and Peck was the obvious player to drop out of that time if it was going to be a Iata +1 in midfield. So, Chris Davies has managed to get Doyle into the team by shifting Iata to right back, which has proved to be a bit of a masterstroke. So, I'm liking the balance now. And if Peck plays to that level as he's played the last 2 games, he is one of Blues' best players and should be the team.
Anyway, that debate is ancient history, belonging deep into last week, isn't it now? So we can definitely put that one to bed. Shall we move on to Middlesbrough, Alex?
We can.
Yeah.
You're a bit of an expert on Middlesbrough, so give us the lowdown.
So I've seen them once in the flesh and obviously from afar, as much as everybody else has this season. Yeah, I was there at the King Power on Tuesday night. Managed to get back after a flat tyre, got back at 2 a.m. So whilst the game didn't have many events, it was quite an entertaining return journey. Borough and Leicester, I went there noting the fact that they were 2 of the lowest scorers, of the teams considered to be promotion contenders. And I was expecting it to be quite a tight, nervy, sort of cautious encounter, and it largely was. I wouldn't say either goalkeeper was overworked by any stretch of the imagination. Leicester maybe just shaded the first half, but only just, and they went 1-0 up when Hayden Hackney gave away a penalty. The ball sort of a clearance was blocked near the Middlesbrough byline, and it sort of bounced up to him on the edge of the penalty area, and it sort of spat up and was spinning away from him, and he sort of stuck his elbow out, and it was deemed to be a penalty. Whether the ball was in the box or not was up for debate. But anyway, Jordan Ayew scored from the penalty. Middlesbrough were much better in the second half, but it still took a 96-minute Luke Ayling header for them to get a draw. So it was a 1-1 draw. They now haven't won in 3. They slipped out of the top 2, the automatic promotion places, albeit they're still 3rd. And I suppose what stuck out to me, Alex, is they are a Rob Edwardsian, solidly built, well-organised team that hasn't quite clicked in attack yet. I would say the goalkeeper, Solbrin's a good goalkeeper. The defence looks solid. Ayling, actually, I've been a long admirer of Luke Ayling, back from even pre him scoring a couple of goals for Leeds at St Andrews a few years ago. I think he was at QPR before that. And I just think he's a very, very good footballer. He played centre-back and was Borough's best player. Hayden Hackney and American midfielder Aidan Morris played in the middle of the park. They were very good as well. So it was a 4-2-3-1, and the 4 and the 2 looked really, really solid. What I would say is they haven't quite got the combination right in attack. Morgan Whittaker played on the right. Delano Bergzoy played on the left. Tommy Conway was behind David Strelak up front. And it was almost a little bit like Blues, in terms of just trying to pound the rock sort of thing, but without, more perspiration and inspiration. Whittaker wasn't great. Bergzoy was probably slightly better. Conway moved up front towards the end and missed a one-on-one, which obviously would have been the equaliser. So I don't think Blues need to be terrified, which is a long-winded way of saying they can go to the Riverside with some confidence.
Yeah, when you list those 4 attackers, I would expect them to be more of a danger than they have been so far this season. I think Rob Edwards' teams are always kind of built on defensive solidity. When I think of the Luton side that was so successful, that was largely a 3-5-2 formation. But I was quite surprised to see the Borough have played a 4-2-3. When they've been like that the whole season, Brian, have they flitted between 3 and a back 4?
No, they haven't. No, they played quite a lot of 3, and indeed in the previous loss at Watford, they played with a 3. Dale Fry was injured, so I wonder if that sort of Edwards felt compelled to go and play as a 4. As I said, it was fine. The 4 and the 2 were absolutely fine. They will have a little bit of decision to make in terms of formation on Saturday, because Alfie Jones got sent off for a professional foul on Staffy Mavridini right at the end, so he'll be banned. As I said, Fry was injured and missed the game, but I think there's some confidence that he'll come back in. And Ayling played right-sided centre half. So yeah, they'll be well organised. And I don't think Blues will be able to go there and absolutely, dominate possession, because Borough do like to have the ball. But there's nothing from those attackers which scares the life out of me either. Whittaker was quiet. I like Tommy Conway. I think he's a player with a lot of promise. But yeah, just keep saying the same thing. They're struggling for combinations in attack.
What was the mood around Rob Edwards like? Because obviously he's been quite heavily linked with the Wolves job, hasn't he? And I think it was kind of suggested that Gary O'Neill was going back to Wolves early this week, and now he's obviously not. So Rob Edwards, I believe, is the favourite with the bookmakers. And as we know, he has quite strong local links, not just to Wolves, but also to this area. Yeah. So do we think that is playing any part in their, I suppose, I'm going to say bad form, but it's not really bad form. They've just not won in a few games.
I didn't detect it, no. They played right into the 97th minute on Tuesday night. They're certainly playing for Rob Edwards. I suppose I left the post-match press conference, slightly disappointed. He'd been asked about the Wolves job on the Monday in his pre-match press conference, and he'd sort of laughed it off, saying, I was only made aware of the speculation by my daughter. And then he was asked again once Gary O'Neill had pulled out the running on Tuesday. He was asked again about it, and he said, again, he didn't kill it. I look back at what Craig Bellamy did when he was asked about the Celtic job, and it was literally no interest. I want to stay here. What's better than being Wales manager? Rob Edwards didn't do that, and he could have done that. And again, he played the, my wife and my daughter are keeping me updated card about it. It's not affecting them, no. To answer your question, it's not.
It's interesting. I always feel like when a manager has quite a simple choice when that question comes, and he can either, kill the links and say, no, I'm happy here, I've only just come to Middlesbrough, or he can leave it open. And that probably gives, Wolves, if they are interested, in a little bit of encouragement, doesn't it? So that'll be interesting to see if it does play a part on Saturday, now that the story's dragged on a little bit longer. Brian, do Blues change? Because I've been doing my research and looking at Blues this season. They haven't named the same starting 11 for 3 consecutive championship games. This would be the first. This is obviously a chance for Chris Davies to do it. Given that it's the last game before the international break, do you think he just says, "Okay, to hell with it, roll out the same 11 for the 3rd straight game, and just see if they can go again for the 3rd time in 7 days"?
That feels like a risk to me. but so does changing a side that's just won back-to-back 4-0 games. I think if you're talking Saturday to Saturday to Saturday, naming the three sides, the same side 3 times over is understandable, isn't it? Saturday, Tuesday, Saturday. I would suggest that they would, something like Tony Mowbray there, I would suggest that they will be looking very hard at the physical data that they're getting back and seeing where the players are in terms of the injury indicators or red zones or whatever the phrases they use there are. If Tomoki Iwata can do that again for a 3rd week running 3 times in 8 days, then he's officially Superman. Are you worried about risking Dutch, for a 3rd hour in 8 days as well, given we've seen how important he's been to Blues? But similarly, we just talked about the combinations emerging all over the pitch. Can you drop them? I don't know. I would I think with Dutch, personally, I think I would probably err on the side of caution.
Yeah. Now you put it out there about Dutch, I think maybe. I'm just not sure. Well, actually, Keshi Anderson would probably come in for him, wouldn't he? Which I wouldn't have that many issues about, because I think Keshi Anderson's a very good first reserve in those positions, and I think he's done quite well in the games that he's played recently. He looked quite menacing when he came on against Millwall as well. So I wouldn't be massively against that. I just think you lose so much if you take Dutch out of the team. But as you say, Brian, would you want to take him out of the team and give him half an hour at Middlesbrough rather than his 60 minutes and have him available for the next 2 months? Or do you want him potentially risk him getting an injury again? So that's one to watch. I think it's probably quite an easy one to move Iwata into midfield and play Bright Asai Samuel at right back if you think he can't get through that level of, running or sprinting for another 90 minutes, I think. But then that breaks up one of the partnerships.
If you do that, you then expose him to more more tackles and more physical battles, don't you? At a point where he might be flagging a little bit. So I don't know if he is safer running up and down the pitch, relatively uncontested, or if you do really want him throwing himself into challenges with Morris and Hackney.
Yeah, I would personally, go for the same 11 again. I'd like to see the same 11 again. Yeah, I think he will, unless, as you say, someone in the sports science department, gives him a ring and says so and so's in the red and can't do 60 or 70 minutes this week. They're going to have to be on the bench. It'd be interesting to see whether any of that does happen. My thinking is that they've got 2 weeks after this, and only 3 members of that starting 11, James Beadle, Peck, and Gray, are likely to be playing on international duty. So I'd try and push it a little bit more, but don't come to me when someone gets injured.
No, I'm afraid I am wrapping Dutch in cotton wool. I'm giving him 23 minutes midway through the second half, giving him that maximum on the basis that this is the last November break. The games are going to be an injury now. It potentially takes him out of 10 games. The games are going to be coming thick and fast. So I'd be open-minded about seeing Dykes up top, and I really am going to get slated now. But I like Jay in the position the way he's playing it at the moment. I think his relationship with Dykes has been pretty good at times, where he's on the pitch. So yeah, I'd be erring with caution over Dutch.
Yeah, my feeling with Dykes is that he's always just better as a sub.
Yeah, I know. Yeah,
I'm not sure why that is, but I think it has proved the case in his time at Blues, and he has been an exceptional sub even this season. So, yeah, I'd go with that. Anything else to add, Brian, or shall we wrap up?
No, let's wrap up there. Just to say thank you for your time, and to thank everyone for listening or watching along. Please hit like or subscribe. Do leave a comment, and all that remains to be said is a big keep right on from both of us.